Hello everyone, I hope you're well. So in my previous video we created this journal spread, and what I want to do is show how you can be inspired by a journal spread and just change it slightly. So I've got a blank page here. We won't use this page here because it's got some alcohol inks on. So our inspiration are these pages. So I'm going to use the same stamps. So on our page we stamped in the salty ocean with my artsy alphas and numbers. We stamped in the background. So what we're going to do is just change it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ink pad, and I'm just going to keep it exactly as I did before and not use an acrylic block, but I'm going to show you obviously a more simplified version because we're going to have it this way and it's just going to be one page. So I'm going to take my black ink and I'm going to ink my artsy alphas and numbers. Let me just see if I want to ink the whole thing or not. Do you know, I think I might. I'm going to ink the whole stamp. Now remember, my journal, which is just over 5 inches in width and each page just over 8 inches in length, it's a moleskin journal that's got watercolour paper, so it's lumpy and bumpy as well, but it's also got pages underneath, as you can see, that have got texture, cut out pieces, lots of other things. But I'm just going to use the stamp as is, like so. Now this is black ink and I'm just stamping bumps and all, just using the stamp as is. That's bumps and all. So then I'm going to ink again. With my Nocturne ink, and don't worry if you miss the edges of some, it's a background. And the wonderful thing about this is that I can use as much or as little of the stamp as I wish. So let's just, there we go. So I can make it a little bit more random by sort of missing bits as well, just so that you can see that. So this is my journal spread. Let's just, as you can see, got a little bit of ink just on my finger here, which you're bound to get when you're using a stamp off the acrylic block. You're bound to get that. Now, this page is very textural. It should be quite absorbent, but just in case it isn't quite absorbent, let's take a little bit of that copier paper. There we go. And we've just blotted. Now you can see, hopefully, if I just tilt, you can see how wet that ink is and how much you've blotted off here. So it's worth just giving your image a little bit of that blotting. Just blot it a little bit, because there is quite a bit of ink on there. Now we're going to use our distress pencils like we did in the previous video. So I'm going to take set 4, and you don't want to put your little set straight onto the stamp set. So I'm going to use the same set that I used, but this time I'm going to take the circles. Let's grab our black pen. And this is taking inspiration from the same design we did before, but just taking inspiration from it, using all the same colours. So just taking inspiration from the page. So I've got one circle there. So that's about 3 1/4 inches. This is 2 3/4 inches. Use any size circle you wish that makes you happy. I'm sort of just joining the lines up so that I've got the circle joined up, and I do like 3 circles on this design. So let's just add this here. So you won't be able to see that, so I'm going to have to hold that up. Like so. Just so you can see the 3 circles. Now I've got a little bit of a tiny blotch at the end of my page because it was on my inky fingers. So what I'm going to do, so that it looks part of the design, I'm going to lift the page up and I'm just going to add a little bit of black ink just to the black, just to the sides, just so it looks like it was meant to be. So just add that to the sides. I'm going to faff continually until it's how I want, because I like that side. That's better. Right, now we can put the ink away. Now before you go to that page, you've got all this wet, let me hold that up, wet black ink on the sides. Now that is going to be wet, so we need to give that a dry. So let's just give that ink a dry. Now this is an absorbent surface and you've seen me blot the ink, so I've added this ink direct to the page, which means that I've got really concentrated ink on that page. So I'm just going to make sure that I just give particularly the edges of the page a dry, because you will pick that ink up if you don't give it a dry. So just give the edges of that card a little bit of a dry. It's just worth giving it a dry. There we go. So then I'm going to take the copier paper again, and I'm just going to rub all around the edges. You know, sometimes when I'm doing a card, I say to you, if you don't want to do a black mat, you can add black ink around the edges. But this is why I don't, because the black ink stays wet for quite a long time. So you need to be aware of that. Okay. Let me just, I want that to stay quite flat now. I wonder if I just heat it a little bit more. I heated it from underneath as well, you see, so there you go. I'm not very fussy, am I? So what I want to do now is add some colour to the circles. And if I'd got any sense, I would have bought in a jar of water, but I didn't. And that's nothing new. So I'm going to use the carved pumpkin that I used in the previous video and festive berries that I used in the previous video. Distress pencils that we used in the previous video. So let's make sure that our brush is relatively clean. And I'm going to start with the festive berries. So I'm going to add the festive berries. Now, if you remember, I added these colours to the flower, didn't I? I added them to the florals. And this time, I'm adding the colour, or these colours, to the circles. And I'm doing it slightly different. I'm adding the darker colour. So adding the darker colour, which is the festive berries. So I'm adding the festive berries, and this is watercolour pages. Now, if you're worried about working on the surface of your card, I'm just going to fold this piece over. These are old pieces that I've used over and over again. If you don't want to lean on your card, you can just lean on a piece of copy paper. Just adding a little bit of the red. Just to this bigger circle. There we go. And then I'm going to take the carved pumpkin, and we're going to add the carved pumpkin. Look at all that professional colouring. So I'm just going to, what I'm doing is sort of going into the red with the orange, just scribbling some of that colour onto there. And what I want is that beautiful vibrancy that I got before. And this time I'm colouring in a different way, because I'm adding the red festive berries first. I didn't do that last time. So what I'm going to do now is pick up water. Now, with the other floral, it was a smaller space, a smaller surface area, and we had to be a little bit more considered with our water. Now I have a bigger surface area. What I'm going to do is take the water in to the colours. So start here. Now you're using a watercolour paper. Look how it works. Drag that colour out. And then we can add more orange as we allow that to dry. So we can add more orange, no problem at all. Now, I've not added any more water yet. Let's see if it'll just react. Just even with a little bit of the moisture. So let's take a little bit more water. Go in to the colour. So you can activate the orange first. Activate that orange. drag your orange out, and then you can go in to the darker colour, and then you can drag that out. And I have to say, these work absolutely beautifully on the watercolour card. Absolutely superbly. Let me just bring this here. So even if you stamped your florals onto watercolour card, they just work absolutely fantastically. They react how they should do, because you've got that watercolour card and it allows you to move the colour. Just fantastically. Take that water, and because you've got the watercolour card, it doesn't break down. Okay, so I've just turned those around to colour, and now we can add a little bit more colour to our design, and we will do one of the circles at a time. So I'm going to pick up the festive berries, and just add a little bit more dimension to the festive berries. Now be aware that if you get your colour, your actual pencil very, very wet, you're going to start splattering some of the colour onto your page. You might want some splatters at this stage, which is absolutely fine, but if you don't, just be aware of that. So what I'm doing now is, I don't need to go into too much detail because my previous video goes into full detail for it's the whole process. What I'm going to do now, I don't mind if the water's slightly tinted. I'm going to pick up the carved pumpkin, and then I'm just going to blend out the lines on the red and bring in more depth to that. You can still go back and use your pencil direct to the card if you wish. You can still do this. You can even dab the pen into the water, and look at this. You get more intensity of colour. You dab the orange into the water and it gives you even more intensity of colour. And then you can pick up the water and blend that out. What I'm trying to show you is the way you can use your product in different ways. And you can still pick it up from here and just add a little bit more of that texture and just blend out, even with your tinted water, just to nothing. Wonderful. So we'll go in, still use our tinted water, make sure you can see, and I'm going to add the festive berries and just drag the festive berries out. And then I'm just doing one at a time. Tinted water, it doesn't matter that it's got both colours in. And then I'm going to bring the orange. I love to do it this way, rather than dip the pen into the water, only because it picks up quite a bit of the pigment, and you may want to go nice and steady, but I'm giving you options, and I think options and knowledge just give you more ideas. So just going in with the festive berries and just adding as many layers as I like. Now, I haven't let this rest yet like I did in the previous video. If you let it rest and come back with some more of that colour, you'll get even more depth. So we'll take the festive berries. We'll just add the festive berries. Just to give a little bit more depth to the page. Then I'll go to my carved pumpkin and just look how easy that is on that watercolour paper. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It drags out the colour and it works beautifully. The movement on watercolour paper is way more than the pink frog, but it's watercolour, that's what it's designed for. So then let's put a bit more water. We're going to take the festive berries again, and I'm going to come in with more of that darkness, more of that festive berries. And this is why card and paper are so important, for this exact reason. Look how that is moving superbly. Take the carved pumpkin and just blend the edges out. And again, if I just take water, doesn't matter that it's tinted, see this line here, watch how it moves. Just because you've got that watercolour, it just moves just as it should. And I prefer to do it that way than the way I did here, where I added the pigment dipped into the water. So we're going to take a bit more of the carved pumpkin. Just make that even more vibrant. So you can add as much or as little as you want. The one advantage of the watercolour paper is that's what it's designed for. It's designed to be used with water and to allow that water to move. And by adding the layers and just giving it a little rest in between, you build up the layers in that card, just like we did in the previous video. And you can drag that up just as much as you want. You can use your tinted water and just blend that all out. And what you've got is something that has the vibrancy. So let me show you. Then you can give it a dry. Let's give that a dry. And I do love how I can colour really easily, but look, I'm still getting black off the edges of that page. That's why I rarely use VersaFine Clair on the edges, because you have to make sure that that is completely dry. So what happens now is we've dried that page. There's nothing come through here, no. So we've dried that watercolour, and what you want to ask yourself is it possible to add even more layers? So we'll take the water, and that's exactly what I ask myself. So we'll go down to this smaller circle here, and then ask yourself, can you add any more layers? And the answer is, if you've got the correct card, yes you can, but only if you have the correct card, paper, whatever you use. But if you don't have the correct surface, that card just breaks down and nothing happens. So we'll take the carved pumpkin, just blend the edges out, pick up the carved pumpkin, blend those out. You can just, and you have to ask yourself if that's got more intensity than those, and for me it has. So I'm going to go back in with the festive berries and just add a little bit more festive berries. Now I see a lot of comments that, you know, you can get a lot of vibrancy, which you can, from your alcohol markers, and you see some beautifully vibrant colouring with your alcohol markers. But I personally wouldn't say that this wasn't too bad for vibrancy. I'd say this is pretty good for vibrancy personally. I think it works really well for that vibrancy. We'll then pick up a little bit of the carved pumpkin and add a little bit more of that carved pumpkin, and again just blend that out, blend that out slightly. There we go. And then we've got our final circle. Take a little bit more, and the reason I can add the layers is, yes, I've got the right card, but the other reason is, one, I've dried it and it's rested a little bit, so therefore I can apply another layer of that colour, making it more opaque and more vibrant, and that's what allows that. Pick up this, let's grab some of that carved pumpkin, a little bit more water, and just add some of that carved pumpkin. And what I think for me, my favourite part is the simplicity of the techniques. You know, you can colour with this just beautifully, and you can get that vibrancy that we all crave. We like our projects, if we're using colour, to look beautifully vibrant. Now let's just lift this up. So you've got that vibrancy, and when you close your page, you will get that vibrancy. Sorry, your page won't be creased. It will flatten out. I might get my words out in a minute. So let that page rest. So we've gone from this page where we use these colours on the flower, but this time we've used them in the background, those colours. Okay, let's just move that out of the way somewhere, and then we're going to grab our floral. So we're now going to use the floral. And we just want the one floral. But obviously we're not going to colour that in the... I think that's a nice size piece of card, so we won't use that. We're not going to colour the floral in the orange and reds. We'll use the blue. I do love to experiment. So I'm using that black Nocturne ink. Again, lots of tapping motions, which I went into detail in the previous video, using the same colours, same stamps. And what I'm showing you now is how you can change the techniques around a little bit, and you just get a different project. There we go, I've got my floral. So previously, let's just move these out of the way. Let's put them in the container. They're just safer there. So there we used our orange and reds in our distress pencils. So what I'm trying to counter for is, if you haven't got many products, and every product, you know, under the sun, because a lot of people have got a lot of products, which is wonderful, they can enjoy their hobby. But if you haven't got a lot of products, we can still show you how to use your products to the best effect. So I have Salty Ocean and Prize Ribbon. So I'm going to see what my colouring will be like with the Salty Ocean ink pad and the Prize Ribbon. Just to see if we can get just as good enough effects with our ink pads. So I'm just making sure that I'm running with clear water, and I'm going to pick up the Salty Ocean. Now I'm not drowning this with water. It's obviously wet because you can see that moving. And what I'm going to do is just add a wash of that colour. So we'll just go down. Now you can see why we needed less water. One, we're using Pink Frog, but that does allow you to move your water. As you can see, it's moving. Not quite as good as watercolour card, but it still moves beautifully. But I'm working in a smaller surface area, so what I need to do is make sure that I don't have everything too wet, so that it doesn't flow from me too much, because I've got these petals on here. And what I'm doing at the moment is just adding a wash of that colour. So there's no depth, it's just a wash. Let me just grab a little bit more intensity of that colour. Little bit of water. And this is still just a wash of colour. It's just that I've picked up a little bit more neat colour, just so that that wash is a little bit darker. And you can see I'm just going into that floral, nothing fancy. The most important key point is that that card allows you to move that product. And I don't have much water on my brush. The problem is, if I add too much water, it instantly becomes diluted. It instantly starts to run away with me. So I always make sure I don't use too much. I'm going to use, what was the dark colour? Prize Ribbon. So just like you would with your paints, your pencils, your pens, anything. So I've got my dark colour now. So I've got the dark colour. I'm just going to take some of that dark colour off, and then I'm just going to blend the outside lines out. So I'm going to take the dark colour, take the excess off, and just drag out those lines. Take the dark colour, take off the excess, and drag that out. So take the dark colour, take the excess off, and just blend your lines out. If it just becomes where it's not moving much, take a little bit more water, add that dark colour, take off the excess, and just blend that out. Pick up a little bit more of the water, pick up a little bit of that dark colour, can go over 2 petals, take off the excess, and then blend that out. Let's add a little bit of darkness here. Okay, so at the moment we're just building up that colour. So I'm going to take a little bit more of the Salty Ocean, and I'm going to wipe this up because that's mainly the dark colour. Wipe that up again, and then I'm going to pick up the Salty Ocean, and then I'm going to go in with the Salty Ocean. A little bit too much moisture on there, and then just drag that out. Go back with the Salty Ocean. So I'm just removing the line from the darker colour, the Prize Ribbon. I'm sort of removing the line from that at the edges with the Salty Ocean. Oh, nearly went straight onto the ink pad then. So just blending this out. And again, I nearly went on the ink pad. Now, what I'm trying to establish is, can I get nice depth like I've done with the floral and the circles and everything else, just using ink pads? So let's just give this a bit of a dry. Now if I dry it, or I let it dry naturally, it's going to allow me to layer more of that colour. And obviously if you let that rest, it's going to allow you more time to layer that colour. So let's add some more Salty Ocean and some more Prize Ribbon. I'm using the acrylic block as my paint palette. And what I'm going to do is take the dark colour, which is the Prize Ribbon, and I'm just going to add the really dark colour all around that centre, so that there's no blending whatsoever, and you can see the lines. But if I make it really dark so that you can see that, let's just rinse that now. so that we take most of that darkness away. And then we'll pick up the salty ocean with the moisture that's left on the brush. And then we're just going to just blend out the lines from the darker colour. So blend out the lines from that darker colour. Have I done them all now? Yes, I think I have. And now I've got lines, or too much definition of lines on the salty ocean. So a slightly wet brush, and go in with your wet brush and just blend a little bit more with your water. There we go, definitely much better. Right, can I add a little bit more definition? So I'm going to take, not that, oh dear me. I'm going to take the prize ribbon again. Let's just add a little bit more of that prize ribbon, and I'm just going to pick that up. Hopefully there's just enough moisture on the brush. If not, I can easily pick up some more. So the brush isn't too wet. And what I'm going to do is just go down with the very dark ink. Just down the edges. Just down those edges. Just to give a little bit more definition. Just to the edges, where it would be a little bit darker. Let's give you more darkness there. Okay, don't think I've added any here. And Tracy's at it again, just giving loads of. So I'm just going to wet my brush, and then I'm just going to soften that a little bit. Don't forget, we haven't added our touches of white yet, and we haven't cut it out. What you can also do then is you can spritz that with water, and you could add that to another background. So for instance, if you've got another piece of card, you can even add your moisture to your card and just place that on here, and you've then got another background. So don't waste your inks. There's lots of backgrounds. You see, that gives me another idea for another project, to just use those colours again. So just looking at this gives me another idea for a project with the baubles. So it just keeps on giving. I'm going to give this is not a bauble, Tracy, it's a flower. I'm going to give this floral a little bit of a dry. And what I'm trying to show you is it's about adding layers, having a little bit of patience, and even with minimal product, you can still get a beautiful floral coloured beautifully. Let's just grab our Posca pen and let's see if that'll work for us. Let's make sure there's no pigment on there. And then we can just add, just like we did with our previous page, just add lots of dots. And just take your time. Just to add a few little dots, and make sure the dots are sort of quite close together. It's sort of an illusion. When you look at it, it really does pop. Now if I cut this out, and then I'll lift it up for you. And again, I'm going to leave a little white border. If the white border isn't for you, then don't leave it. Turning my card instead of my scissors to prevent any pressure on my hand here. If I turn the card, it just makes it a lot easier. It's my left hand, my less dominant hand, that is doing all the work. All it's doing is holding the paper or card loosely and turning that around, and then the scissors just do the cutting. I'm not putting any pressure on my wrists or my hand. And you could always cut out after you've coloured and then add your touches of white, giving your card time to rest so that it dries a little bit, and then adding your white. There's no point trying to add that Posca pen when it is absolutely soaking wet, because you're not going to get anywhere. There we go. I think we can just cut that a little bit better personally. There we go. Now, I think that's pretty good from ink pads personally. Just looks lovely. But what we can do is we can add, with it being that nice rich dark blue, we can just add a few little lines. But look how many times you can make stamps look completely different. I just adore them. You can just make them look different each time. And my ink it's quite dry, so I can add these touches of white really nicely. Let me show you. I think that pops beautifully. I really do think that pops beautifully. And what we've done is we've alternated the way we've used the colours. So our previous page was the orange florals with the blue background, and our single page is, and the watercolour, where's the watercolour, I think, takes the colour slightly different than on the florals of the pink frog. Just beautiful. Just love it. So what I've got now is my blue floral that I can set against the background. I just love it. I love the fact just alternating something around just changes the feel, the whole feel of the page. So as I did with the previous page, I'm just going to adhere sort of in the middle area, like so. And again, you've made your page and your stamps look completely different yet again, which I absolutely love. Right, let's grab our bird, because we want the bird, because we added the bird in the previous page. So let's take the bird from TE4 and let's use some Salty Ocean, and then let's use Prize Ribbon, and then let's just stamp. Oh, just lovely. Now I've got a little bird in the blues. Now that's with the two colours. Let's just have a look at it just with the Prize Ribbon. you like how? Might have them both, we'll see. Let's cut out. You can tell when Tracy can't make her mind up. Can't make your mind up, cut them both out. I'm just cutting those out a little bit. Let's just... Again, I'm going to repeat myself, but if you cut the legs out first, it is far easier. The more of the bird that is intact in the card, the easier it is to cut the little feet out. There we go. So again, just leaving a little white border. Let's cut the feet out first and practice what we preach. See, I've got the whole of the bird's body in the cardstock, and it just means cutting the little feet out. It's just much more simplified. It's easy for you to say. So just cut that out. There we go. Go round. Let's just cut that a little bit better, Tracy, because it doesn't look right. There we go. Do you know why that was then, why that didn't look right? Because then I was just thinking about another project. This is what I'm like all the time. About another project I could create using the dark blues. Honestly, that's what I was doing. I'm terrible. My mind hasn't finished one project and it's already going on to another project. I am dreadful. So then I can take my two beads and just add my two beads. I don't think it really matters which you add first. So I'm just going to take the little beads, I'm only adhering sort of in the centre area. You obviously want to see the little beads' faces. So I'm not sticking the whole thing down. I will add some touches of white shortly. We're going to add some Posca pen. Now give your Posca pen a good shake. Gently hold it down. Gently pump that pen. Don't go so hard that you're going to affect the nib. There's no need. Then you're going to add some of those beautiful splatters just to your project. And the splatters are so easy to do then once you have pumped that pen a little bit. It's far easier. And then shall we have some wording? So let's have some wording. There's nowhere. The problem is my journal is so long. There's actually nowhere to put anything. Right. Let's have... What did I have on the other one? Was it with... Tracy can't go straight to the page. The Beauty of Flowers. So let's have... Each day is a treasure. Can't you tell Tracy couldn't think what to have? Now, I've put oxide inks onto that stamp, so I now need to give that a clean, especially if I plan on going in with any VersaFine Clair inks. Each day is a treasure is what we're going to use, preferably some cardstock. Nowhere in sight. Did we have any left on this? Not really. So we'll use another piece of cardstock. And do that each day is a treasure. And then dump your stamp like I normally do, and then can't find it. Just cut that out of the way. And I think I'm going to sort of break up the wording a little bit. And I'm going to say it here and now on video, but I could have cut out better if my eyes were shut. There we go. Each day is a treasure. Let's cut that down a little bit. I've got the biggest scissors on the planet. Bring in my page, and I do like a touch of the white text on here. Maybe if you put the wording so that it read correctly as well is often a good thing. So we've got the each day on there, and we'll have is a treasure down here. So we'll take this again. Add this here. Just allow that a few seconds just to grab hold. Add this here. Just down here. Just so it balances out nicely. And you can guarantee the only thing that I haven't got here is my Inktense pencil. Got my little Inktense it's easy to say, Inktense pencil, just to add a little bit of shading. Now I'm going to have to touch this very lightly because you've got that Distress pencil from set 4 underneath. And we've got blue on there. You never know what colour I've got on here. I work with that many. So just take a little bit of that moisture off, and then we're just going to sort of touch, touch very gently and just drag that out so you've got that real bit of darkness underneath. And then just to finish off, you're going to add another layer of your splatters. Like with everything, you're just sort of layering it up. Just add a little sort of eye there. There we go. I'm going to lift this up and show you. And now we have another journal page where we've changed the colours around so they're in opposite positions, and it looks beautiful. I really like that. But because we've now got this on the background, you didn't think we'd finish, did you? Don't be silly. You should know me by now, because because I like to carry on a bit of work. So we're going to take Salty Ocean and we're going to put it on my non-stick craft sheet. We're going to take plenty of water, and what you're going to do is pick this up and you're going to add a little touch of the blue with loads of water to your background. Now, what you're not going to do, she says as she tries to move a book around, you're not going to fill all the white areas in your book. Just some of that, not all of it. You're just going to do some. So grab the water and make sure it's really diluted. So take a little bit, just up to there. Use a lot of water because your page will take that. Okay. I don't want to go right up to the floral. Not with the darkest of colour anyway. Just dilute it nicely. And it's easier if I can turn the page a little bit. There we go. And I'm mainly using tinted water here. Just to drag out a little bit of that colour. Just a little bit of the tinted colour. And you really don't need to add much. What you need to do is take the tinted water and sort of scribble it out to almost nothing, so that you've got a sort of a suggestion of that colour all around. Perfect. Let's just clean all that up. And then whilst that is still wet, add a few more splatters. There we go. Much better. And then you've got your page finished. I know what you're saying. Oh, you're really finished now, Tracy. Oh, you're really finished. Well, the good thing about journal pages is you can do things like, oh, say you're having a rubbish day. You can come to your journal and think, well, every page where I've got lettering, I can add a little bit of white if I want, just to all my lettering. You know, it's your journal, so like anything, you can keep adding even when your page is finished. You can add a week later. It's your journal, but you can come in and add more. So for instance, a week might have passed by and you decide, well, I want a few touches of white just to my circle. So you can just add the touches of white. It's entirely up to you. You can just keep adding to the page. My page is still soaking wet, so you can just add layers. And just the idea of your journal is just to enjoy some time for you, just so that you enjoy the process. And the most important thing is actually using your product. So I hope you've enjoyed that. and I hope you'll give that a go. Let's place that down. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.